Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is October 2nd, 2025. My name is Mike Kelly. I am the Chair of the Board of County Commissioners here for Johnson County, Kansas. We're here for an agenda review for the commission meeting that will take place on October 9th, 2025. I will note for the record that all commissioners are present for this agenda review. Therefore, ask the clerk to read item number 1 on the agenda.
Consider approving the September 11th, 2025 business session minutes.
Any questions on those minutes? Seeing none, how about item number 2, please?
Consider authorizing a fiscal year FY 2025 start date for the FY 2026 approved 1 FTE TTV motor vehicle specialist, sheriff vehicle equipment purchases, sheriff operations center security upgrade capital improvement project, and facilities major asset replacement program, MARP, capital improvement project, authorizing the execution of a cooperation agreement between Johnson County, Kansas, the county, and the Public Building Commission, PBC, to transfer and advance up to $1,280,000 from the county general fund reserves to provide interim funding for the MARP, and authorizing the reallocation and expenditure of reserves for FY 2025 in the amount of $3,772,530 from the general fund.
Robin Symes is here to present the item or items.
Yes.
Symes, welcome
Sorry, there's
back.
a lot going on here. So I'm going to try and break down each item. First off, all of these items have been approved in the 2026 budget. This is just for an early start for to get those projects going. The first item is the motor vehicle specialist. If you recall, we did repurpose a vacant leadership position into 2 motor vehicle specialists. We have already begun the hiring process of one of those. However, the second one is actually requires an increase to our FTE count, which means we need to come forward to the board for that approval for an early start. And so that's what that first piece is. The second item is for sheriff vehicle purchases in the amount of $825,000. That item is included in their 2026 operating budget. However, due to the demand for vehicles and the order window being October 2025 to January 2026, they would like to go ahead and get that started, that ordering process started, so that they can get those vehicles in a timely manner, which again requires the early start for that purchase. The third item is the Sheriff's Operations Center Security Upgrade CIP. It's $1,650,000. They would like to begin the design stage for that here in 2025 so that they can begin that project as soon as possible in 2026 to get those security upgrades in a timely manner as well. And then the final item is for an early start for the facilities major asset replacement program. So again, for PBC, we just talked about the 2025. This is the 2026 major asset replacement program. However, we're really only asking for an early start for the 2 sheriff items. It's for exterior glazing renewal at the Operations Center and then also at the New Century Adult Detention Center. Those amounts are $1,280,000. The reason for the early start is they would like the design phase to coincide with the sheriff operations security. So all of those projects impact the other, and so it just makes sense for those, again, to go ahead and have that design phase in 2025 at the same time as they move forward. And then the final item is really more administrative. What it does is it approves a cooperation agreement between the board and the PBC. What we will do is we will advance the PBC that $1,280,000, and then once those bonds are sold next year, then PBC will reimburse the county general reserves in that same amount.
Thank you very much, Ms. Symes. Questions? Commissioner Brewer.
2 questions, and I will say I only have 2 questions thanks to having some time with the county manager and Ms. Friedel this week to have a better understanding, because this is, as you stated at the beginning, it's a long motion and there's a lot in there, and for the most part, the briefing sheet was very helpful. So my first question is this: we contemplate the advance of the 1.28 from the county general fund reserves to provide that interim funding. And then we authorize a reallocation of expenditures or reserves for FY 2025 in the amount of 3.5 3.7 million and change from the general fund. Is that general fund or general fund reserves?
General fund reserves. And so that 3.7 million, that's the accumulation of all of those early starts. And so that includes the 825,000 for the vehicles, the 1.6 million for the security operation, or the operations center security upgrades, and then also for that glazing CIP project. So
May-
all of those combined equal that 3.7.
Thank you. May I make a suggestion between now and next week when this moves to action, if it's determined to move to action, is that in the issue paragraph on the briefing sheet and in the suggested motion, at the very end, since it's from general fund reserves, that we just add reserves, so we say general fund reserves. And then that way, it'll help be clear to members of the public that look at these and sometimes have questions on where the money is coming from. It's a little bit more specific. You answered one of my questions in your presentation, because I know the repurpose of a leadership position in the Department of Motor Vehicles to 2 frontline positions. So what I'm hearing is, because I eliminated one position to create 2 positions, one of those I could go ahead and hire, because that was within the employee count that was contemplated.
Yep.
But this would be then the second position that would have put us as an additional employee count.
Correct.
So that's very helpful. So thank you. I know that Treasury, Taxation, and Vehicles has been working hard on some issues we've been having with wait times with DMV, so I really appreciate that. And then my final question is just procedural, the cooperation agreement. So the action we would contemplate next week would set us up for an October 23rd PBC meeting. So the cooperation agreement is a 2-step process. Sitting as the Board of County Commissioners, we approve this in concept, and then sitting as the Public Building Commission, we have a next step approval as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you
I'm looking
very
at
much.
Leslie to make sure, yes.
That helps me a lot. So this is a process in order to make that happen, because one of my questions was the fact that the bond is still an item that is going forward, and this is allocating or approving a spending authority within that scope. So now that makes sense to me, so I
Yes,
appreciate
and
that.
then just remember that this MARP is for 2026.
Yes.
Not the
past
what you're
one.
approving.
Ms. Friedel
on
was very
October
helpful
23rd. Yes.
yesterday when I had that very question,
Yes.
so I really appreciate that. So thank you so much.
We can make that change to the motion and be happy to have you make the motion next week, Commissioner Burr. Commissioner Ashcraft, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, Mr. Chairman, I was just going to note that this is really a procedural item well within the normal course of duties that we subscribe to every year, and it's an appropriate use of reserves, and I would say doubly so given the inflationary pressures we're feeling to go ahead with these items, so I'm very supportive of it.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you. I just had a question. If you could remind me, and this might be actually for the sheriff's office, the briefing sheet says under the facilities MARP CIP, the items included in this project are to do exterior glazing renewal at the Sheriff's Operations Center and New Century Adult Detention Center, and for roof replacement and envelope renewal at the Sunset Drive office building. 2 questions. Is exterior glazing, is that replacing and repairing windows?
I'm laughing because I literally just had this conversation that I don't know what that is either. And so, here, Adam knows.
The reason I ask is I was just down there a couple days ago, and they were telling me how bad the windows are in that building.
Yes, that's what it is.
Okay, I want to be sure. And then tell me, the Sunset Drive office building, which building are we referring to there?
That should be our Sunset building in our Sunset campus.
Okay, it
Yes.
Building in the-
not necessarily connected with the sheriff's office.
No.
Okay,
That's
where I was-
separate, and so that piece is not going to be an early start. It's just part of the whole MARP approval.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right.
Stay on good sanitize.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. Will the clerk read item number 3, please?
Consider authorizing the 2026 County Assistance Road System Program expenditures in an amount not to exceed $18,781,000.
Welcome back, sir. Good morning, Commissioners, Chairman. Just a point of order for next week, and then I'll turn it over to Scott to talk about our CARS expenditures. This is the time of year we bring up our stormwater management program, CARS expenditures for your review and approval. Typically, we ask the clerk to read both items together, as we will have a couple of city representatives, several city representatives present that want to speak to the value of these programs for their cities. So we'll present on both items and allow an opportunity for some of the city representatives to speak. And with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Good morning, Scott Kariorgis with Public Works. This is our CARS program, which is an essential program for our cities as they maintain transportation infrastructure throughout the county. The CARS program was formalized in 1983. The county has always been making agreements and collaborating with cities on these types of projects. They just started to establish a more formal process. In '96, the board got tired of putting the program together and recognized the need for a technical review committee, which is composed of technical representatives from each city and was tasked with developing recommendations for improving the program. In 2001, an 80% rule was established, which developed consistency and equity in how funding was allocated. For the last 20-plus years, the program has run rather efficiently under the 80% rule. Shown here are the CARS program vision and mission statements. Back in 2016, the county completed a strategic plan and developed a vision and mission statement. Coming out of the strategic plan updates, our stormwater management program had significant modifications, and while the importance of the CARS program to the cities was highlighted, only minor tweaks to the program were made. Funding sources for the 2026 program consist of a gas tax, special city county highway fund of $13.1 million, with county support of .343 mils, $5.7 million, and then a total of $18.8 million for this year's program. Regarding funding, if you look at this graphic, back to 2005, the program was funded at $15.4 million, and the current program is at $18.8 million. Escalation and construction costs based on the National Highway Construction Cost Index has been around 90%, as you can see on the far right, and while the program has only grown at about 20% in terms of revenue. And the goal of this was to help illustrate the program's decreased buying power over the last 20 years or so. Shown here are the projects funded in 2026. There are 13 projects in 13 different cities. These consist of 10 major roadway maintenance projects, 2 capacity enhancement projects, and 1 route enhancement project. These 13 projects represent the city's top priority projects. The total requested amount for the projects was $19.4 million, with funding available of $18.8. So we had to trim the funding to most cities' top priority projects to fit this budget. There were also 4 additional eligible projects that were submitted for consideration that the cities plan to construct in 2026 that were not funded by the CARS program due to budgetary constraints. So in total, the program fell approximately $3 million short of the need identified by the cities. And here we have a location map showing those same projects that were on the previous slide. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time, and I'm here to stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. The top line is that the projects that are selected for the 2026 CARS program represent the top priority for each city, which to me means that we are in the same theme of the purpose of the CARS program. I think one of the things we've recognized with the CARS program is its impact wanes based on inflationary pressures, based on the supply chain and other problems that just make these roadway projects more expensive than they used to be. And in fact, given the chart, which I appreciate, looks like we have less than a quarter of the impact that we would otherwise be having based on the intent of the program back in 2016. Tell me a little bit, we also have a CARS reserve fund balance, right? Can you tell me a little bit about where that reserve fund is and what its forecast looks like for future years?
Yes, it's sitting at 4.2 million for 2025, with, it'll be decreasing to, I believe, just around 2.5 million in 2026.
Which means if that continues instead, we probably go into the red 2027 and beyond.
Yeah, correct, yep.
Okay. I guess one of the questions, and I don't know if this is a fair question of how we track, but as we move forward, one of the things I would like to be able to see is what are the number of lane miles that we're actually impacting? While it may be top priorities for the cities, are cities changing their top priority and making it a more efficient project or just a shorter project? Or are they giving us different projects because the number of lane miles that we're able to impact have decreased based on just the cost of projects? So that's one. I don't know if you have any information on that. And then number two, what's the average PCI of the projects that we're seeing? Are we seeing that cities are delaying roadway projects and therefore the pavement condition index, which is one indicator of roadway health, is that number decreasing when these are actually coming to us? Therefore, cities are putting off projects based on this increase in cost and based on the lessening of impact from the CARS program, among any other number of challenges to maintaining pavement and streets within cities. So
right.
if you have thoughts, you're welcome to share them. Those are more just thoughts than questions.
Yeah, I'll tackle the first part. I think you asked specifically how many lane miles of roadway. Just going back over the last 5 years, we were able to fund about 300 lane miles, right around 100 center line miles for these types of projects. And these, we call them major roadway maintenance. There is a variety of types of CARS projects that we see from cities, but those take up about 80% of, anywhere from 50 to 80% of the total in terms of funding that we see. And that's going back to the last like 5+ years.
Okay.
Total or per year? 300?
It fluctuates year to year, but the 300 was just for the last 5 years, like going back to 2020.
Per year or total for 5 years?
So
Total.
300 miles in the last
Total.
5 years.
Total, yeah.
And do we see that decreasing, staying about the same?
It's been about the same,
Okay,
yeah, year to year.
good to know. Thank you. Commissioner Ashcraft, why don't you go ahead, continue?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Mr. Garza's comments. I haven't had a chance to study the report, so if we could visit before next week, I always like learning more about the project, so if we could, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, sounds good.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this program is so vital to our county, so I just have a question, because it's gas tasks, right, off of cars. So are we looking at, which I'm sure we probably are, electric cars, and as we start charging fees for that, will we get revenue for this program off of that? Or has that already started?
No, so at the state level, we got an update earlier this year on that. They did a pilot study that KDOT was partnered with a couple of other DOTs on, looking specifically into that. And I don't see in the short term any policy change to account for EVs. But we're constantly like looking at it every year to see if there's any updates. But
Commissioner Brewer.
Yes, just a couple questions, and thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for the report. I appreciate the level of detail and the mapping. Could we go back to slide 5? Because I think you made an important point that I don't want to, just kind of breeze over. The straight black line, that is, I'm sorry, the cumulative change, is that the national, the NHCCI? That stands for the?
the solids are program revenue. The dashed is the, National Highway Construction Cost Index,
Okay.
over time.
And that's what I wanted to kind of highlight, is we're seeing, as been underscored in comments from the chair, we're seeing that's that cost differential. This is the income that the program's bringing in,
Yep.
and these are the changes in cost over time.
Correct.
So I think that's important to underscore again, because as has been questioned with some of the other comments from commissioners about the fact that how many road miles are we able to do? How is the ever-increasing cost of materials and cost of doing business for this work allowing us to do the maximum number of road miles? I did have a question on page 2 of the recommended projects and how we're funding them. A question was asked about the reserves, and are you utilizing any reserves? It sounds like yes for 2026. I don't see how it's reflected in the cost model here. I didn't know if we could add that line so we can just kind of see, as we get to that total that we're going to allocate to use, how much of that total is being funded by some reserves.
Okay.
So it's just another way that we can see what spend down of reserves may look like, and that's helpful from my standpoint.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of times those will be used to fund multi-jurisdictional efforts or border or boundary projects. I don't know if you want to speak to it.
So you're saying that the reserves aren't necessarily in this mix here, it's some of those ongoing, you discussed in the report, some other funds that are used for ongoing maintenance activities.
Yeah, specific to the reserves, Public Works, through their cooperative agreements on boundary road projects in the unincorporated area, those reserves go to fund overlays on unincorporated area roads and boundary improvement projects like the one on Blackbot.
And that's where you mentioned in the report, for those types of projects that are below the $150,000 threshold, these monies are available to make those authority administrative allocations. Things that would rise above that would come back to the body?
That's the next program we're going to.
That's the next, okay,
That's
sorry,
Stormwater.
I'm a
Yep.
program ahead.
Yep.
Okay. And finally, I do appreciate having sat on the Spring Hill Safe Streets for All effort. I'm seeing not only in '26, but in out years, '27, '28, that some of those priority roadways are part of that future planning. So I appreciate that collaboration as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
See no further questions. We'll see this next week. Thank you very much. And so now we'll ask the clerk to read item number 4, knowing that at next week's meeting, we'll read the programs together.
Consider authorizing the 2026 Stormwater Management Program expenditures in an amount not to exceed $25,013,842.
Welcome back. We'll hear a presentation now on the Stormwater Management Program.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Heather Schmidt, with the Program Manager for the Stormwater Management Program. The expenditures for your review today were prepared in accordance with our policies and procedures and are consistent with previous year's expenditures. They also come to you with the full support of the Stormwater Management Advisory Council from the meeting that was held on September 3rd. You ready? First, I'd like to remind everyone some background on the Stormwater Management Program. The program is funded by a 0.1% sales tax that's dedicated for the purpose of stormwater management. The majority of this funding is cost-shared with the cities on stormwater improvement projects. And the Stormwater Management Program staff and Stormwater Management Advisory Council work together to oversee and make recommendations on these expenditures to the board yearly. Every year, we like to review our vision and mission statements with the board. As you can see, our vision statement is a declaration of the program's objectives and is intended to guide our decision-making. Our mission statement describes why our program exists, what its overall goal is, and what kind of services it provides. Moving on to the proposed expenditures, this table is intended to give you an overview of the entire program. At the top, you can see total funds available for 2026 is a little over $26 million. We allocate approximately $1 million of that to go to administrative services. And below, that is a total of about $25 million available for capital projects. And I will go into more detail in the following slides. First, we have our planning and support projects that are funded at approximately $4.6 million. These funds are allocated for ongoing studies that the cities develop to allow the cities to develop their projects, as well as continuing the work of the watershed master plans. We also allocate funding for partnering on regional projects and R&D projects, as well as the funding for the Stormwatch rain gauge and flood warning system, and USGS rain gauges as well, and stream gauges. Moving on to the system management projects. We have two types of projects that we fund under this program, which is the condition assessment projects or inspections, and then also system replacement projects, both at a 50% cost share with the cities. We are allocating approximately $11.5 million to this program area, with the projects shown on this following map. The program is very popular with the cities for assistance with replacing their failing infrastructure, and we are funding 19 projects in 11 different cities in 2026. Moving on to the watershed improvement projects. This funding category includes projects that improve water quality and reduce flood risk. There's about $7.7 million allocated to watershed improvement projects in 2026. In this funding area, we allocate funding to support the cities for their regulatory compliance with the state for their stormwater discharge permits. One example of this funding is the popular Contain the Rain program. The cities can take credit on their permits for public education and public participation that happens through Contain the Rain. We also allocate funding for water quality improvement projects and for a voluntary home buyout program. And then finally, we have 4 flood risk reduction projects in 4 different cities in 2026, and those are shown on this map. We are beginning a project in DeSoto in 2026, and then we had 2 additional funding requests on ongoing projects in the city of Leawood and the city of Mission, and then a large continuation of a multi-year project with the city of Merriam and the Corps of Engineers. And then lastly, we like to go through our 5-year preliminary funding plans. As you can see here, this is the system management 5-year preliminary plan. As I said before, this is a very popular program with our cities, and they typically apply for the amount that we have budgeted every year. And then this is our 5-year preliminary plan for watershed improvement projects. This list will continue to be updated over the coming years as cities submit projects that get added to our projects eligible for future funding list. And that current list is shown here. These projects have completed preliminary engineering studies and have been approved for funding, but the city has not elected a year for funding yet. When the cities are ready to move forward, we will add these projects to the 5-year funding plan, and then there are also studies underway that will get added to this list throughout the year. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Ashcraft, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Schmidt, thank you for your presentation. I have not had a chance to study it, but if we could visit before next week, I would appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you.
So, looking outward, not only this year, I was wondering if there's one particular project, if it's okay to get in the weeds real quick
Sure.
on one of these. That's the Upper Turkey Creek stormwater improvements. Can you tell me a little bit about that project, the partners that we have, and its importance not only to the city of Merriam, but all of Northeast Johnson County?
Yes, so that project is a cooperation between the city of Merriam and the Corps of Engineers, and then we're cooperating with the city of Merriam to help them pay their local share of that project. It's been on our books for quite some time, and just recently Congress appropriated some funds to start design. The design will be 60% done here in this fall is the plan at the moment, and then there'll be some decisions made on what the project's going to look like, and then also how we're going to move forward. The city of Merriam will be here next week, and she will be talking towards this project as well, so she'll have more information than I do. But this is a very important project. This will take a lot of downtown Merriam out of the flooding issues that they have had. They experienced more flooding this last summer, so it's an important project to get moving on the books.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Brewer?
Yes, I'm just wondering, between now and next week, I just have a question specific to a District 3 issue, and if we could just touch base.
Of course.
That would be awesome. I
Yes.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Ashcraft.
Well, I'm sorry. Well, Mr. Chairman, you raised an issue which was part of the conversation I wanted to have with staff before next week. Miriam is trying to address a local issue. What are we doing upstream from Miriam or not doing upstream from Miriam that is impacting the city of Miriam? And that was my question on a variety of these topics, but since you brought that up, Mr. Chairman, I mean, that's a pretty big piece of change that they're asking for.
Right.
Is it something that is caused by local activities, or are there upstream issues that could be or should be addressed?
I think it's a combination of things.
Well, we can visit before next week. That's okay, but I mean, it was a good point. We can visit next week.
Fair conversation. Thank you, sir. Well, thank you for helping any commissioner that needs a conversation in the interim, but we'll see you all next week on this program, and thank you all very much.
Sounds great, thank you.
All right. Will the clerk read item 5, please?
Resolution number 124-25. Consider adopting resolution number 124-25 and authorize Johnson County to issue taxable industrial revenue bonds, IRBs, Series 2025, in the principal amount not to exceed $25,300,000 for the purpose of financing the construction of an industrial facility located at New Century, Kansas, and to grant an ad valorem tax abatement on the constructed improvements for 10 years, starting at 30 cents a foot, escalating at 1.5% each year thereafter, and entering into a payment in lieu of tax pilot agreement and certain other documents in connection with the issuance of the bonds.
Mr. Johnson, welcome back.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Good to be here with all of you on this particular topic. Before I get started, I do want to introduce our County Bond Counsel. We have with us Kevin Wimpy and Chanel Perez. Thank you for your time today. They've been a super help through this entire process, as well as our legal staff, Cindy and Leslie and others, as we journey along through this particular development project. Okay, we know who we are. As soon as I can move this forward. Okay. So we have good history with this airport, and we've mentioned this many times before, but this is really who we are as an airport commission. You can see the annual economic impact, but we are an economic engine, and that's very significant to this, what is before you today. One of the other important factors that we consider and we look at as an airport are our federal obligations. And those federal obligations come in the form of what we call grant or sponsor assurances. Anytime we accept federal dollars for the expenditure of making aviation improvements, there's a series of obligations that come along with that. Well, one of those just happens to be airport self-sustainability. This is something that all airports strive to become, financially self-sustaining, and utilizing the tools in our toolbox, the issuance of IRBs, help us get there. It really is, again, a wonderful asset to have built into our economic development incentive program. As it relates to those IRBs, and again, under the umbrella of federal obligations, all of that is really being driven by fair market value lease agreements and revenue use. I think it's important to note here, I'm saying leases. So the land that we have that represents the airport is not for sale. We lease this land, and that becomes a bit of a challenge sometimes. And I think VTRE or any development group would mention that as well. That's certainly a struggle for us. I know we're working with our various partners, Economic Area Development Council, the State Commerce. They mention that from time to time. Even our friends at Newmark Zimmer that currently represents us as we go out into the market trying to find other opportunities for development. And then, of course, again, getting back to all of this approach that we undertake helps us continue on that journey of becoming financially self-sustaining, fosters that long-term economic growth, and helps us to maintain that vital regional asset we call our airport system. So why are IRBs? Again, they're a part of our toolbox, and that was something that was set forth back in 2020 when the airport's economic development incentive policy was updated from 2012. And again, the goal here is to provide tax-exempt financing, incentivize possible opportunities for development, attracting aviation and non-aviation-related industries with the idea of what are we doing? We're creating jobs, we're expanding that airport's role as an economic engine. All right, you've seen a lot of pictures of the airport, random dates here, 1986. That might be a high school graduation or college graduation, who knows? But anyway, regardless of the dates on this particular slide, I think it's important to note we really have benefited from the asset that DOD transferred over to us back in the early 70s. And while this property has sat vacant and empty over many, many of those years, it really hasn't changed. I mean, up until 2020, when this initiative and all this drive to further the energy of the county and the airport came forward. So what you're looking at in this slide are where our current condition, if you will. You're all very much aware of these properties on the right-hand side in the peach color, Building A, Building B1 and B2. Those are fully functional. They've all been leased up 100%. With the exception of B2, they have about 67,000 square feet left to lease in that building. And then you can see G2, which is vertical. It's essentially ready to go. Just a few minor checks of the planning and development process that we're going through right now with both Van Trust Real Estate as well as our planning team here within the county. But again, a really, really great opportunity. New property tax, new airport revenue. And that's, again, kind of fulfills that federal obligation that we have as an airport. And then finally here, this is a little bit of that snapshot of history that, again, kudos. I mean, I've been here for 2 years, and I think back to what those conversations must have been like for those that were a party to them. And really, if they could be here today, some of you are, which I'm grateful for. But again, just to see what we've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. And these are just the 3 buildings that are currently functional and operational. And you can see how we've moved through the issuance of the IRBs for each one of those development projects. And then lastly here is our pretty simple summary of what we're doing with Building G2. This is right out of the performance agreement as far as the total acres under lease, what that annual revenue looks like back to the airport, which feeds our financial model, the square footage of the building, and then the baseline for the payment in lieu of taxes agreement set forth back, developed in 2020. And then you can see the industrial revenue bond issuance number there as well. And lastly, bullet 5, I wanted to make sure that you're fully aware, and I know you are, but in that performance agreement, there is an annual report that we collect up every year, beginning in the second year of the pilot program. And that's all I have to offer, and stand for questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's a great day for the airport today, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to thank you guys. You guys have been great partners. So anyway, I just want to say that. So there's a lot more to come yet at the airport. So I want to thank you, and I'm 100% in support of this.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brewer.
I just wanted to thank you for the time, Mr. Johnson, that you and the bond attorneys took yesterday with me to kind of bring me up to speed on this project. And I just want to underscore a couple key things that you shared with us today and you shared with me yesterday, and that is that understanding that when it comes to understanding first and foremost the obligation to be self-sustaining and how you get there. Because the land that we're developing right now is bringing in 0 revenue. And as you develop that land is not for purchase, it's only for lease, which could be a barrier to finding the customer base, right, to lease that up. And I appreciate that also the understanding that to some extent these buildings have to be in production and getting built before they're totally leased up, because they have to be a product that you can bring people in and they're not waiting 1 or 2 years before they could utilize the space. All of that, because I know we get some questions when we talk about different ways to attract in this case, leasees or leasers of the property, of why can't we just go full market? And it's always that reminder that the land is generating zero now, and there are some barriers, and you're working with an obligation. So you could wait decades before that land, somebody wants to come in at that rate, or you can find a way that gets us there and has kind of a 10-year ramp up and then allows us to have that continuation at that full market. But in the meantime, we're bringing in that revenue and you're meeting your obligations. Of my understanding and your analysis is that the rent that comes off of this is allowing for us to retire the debt for the public infrastructure on it. So that's how the program works. And maybe just discuss a little bit more about the pilot so more folks understand how the acronym, how the pilot works.
Yeah, certainly, Commissioner. I think at this time what I'm going to do, I think it's in my best interest in the county to really bring up the bond council to give you detail on that specific topic. They're the ones that are truly involved in the development of the agreements, et cetera.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Wimpy with Gilmore and Bell, the county's bond counsel, also joined by my colleague Chanel Perez. So the question on pilots or payments in lieu of taxes. So to start, just from underscore the state law here is that property is either on the tax rolls or it's off the tax rolls. And so the issuance of the IRBs is what permits the county to partner with private developers and remove property from the tax rolls, with the exception of some school district mills that are still fully paid. Once the property is off the tax rolls, most local governments who issue IRBs and provide tax exemption insist on a payment in lieu of tax agreement where a portion of a hypothetical property tax is paid. And that was negotiated as part of the 2020 development agreement here. And so in the performance agreement, you can see the full schedule of pilot payments anticipated to be paid over the 10-year term. Those pilot payments are treated just like property taxes. So they're distributed pro rata to all the taxing jurisdictions in accordance with the mill levy that year. So not 100% of those are coming to the county. You'll get your proportionate share of those pilot payments. Does that answer the question?
It does, and I appreciate you breaking that down for not just us at the dais, but for residents too, who I've received some emails regarding this particular, and so I think it helps clarify some of the questions that were being asked.
Great.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Johnson, just one quick question. So how are we covering the cost of fire service for this facility as well as the other facilities? Who's shouldering that burden?
So the cost of fire service is something that is not directly built in to our, again, I want to separate out our lease agreement between the airport and VTRE does not account for that fire coverage. However, there is a component of that fire coverage that we'll see in 10 years once we get through the pilot program. So the cost right now through our assessment.
It is transferred then to other taxpayers within the district?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this item? All right, well, we'll see it next week. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and why don't you hang right there because we'll hear item number 6 now.
Consider approving a real estate sale contract for real property located at 600 New Century Parkway and 561 Sumner Way, New Century, Kansas, with Sky Partners II, LLC buyer in the amount of $5 million.
Mr. Johnson.
Really, really exciting day to be with all of you, to have everyone here in attendance. And actually, before I get started, I really do need to introduce a few of our friends here today, as well as staff, and thank a lot of people. First, I'd like to thank the Airport Commission and airport staff for all the work and bringing us here today to consider this contract. I do want to thank Adam as well and Cindy for their work in really driving the contract agreement forward, as well as a little bit of my predecessor, Arenado, as well for his work bringing it to this point. With us today, we have Wes Grammer, who represents Sky Partner, the buyer of the 600 New Century building. We have Mark Garrity as well, representing CRBE. And then we've got two of our Newmark Zimmerman associates who's worked on behalf of the airport, representing that particular property, Tommy Gentry and Trey DeRose. So carrying forward with what we're here for, you have a one-sheeter in front of you at your desk that represents Building 600. We call it a New Century Office Building. It also includes another smaller parcel or property called 561 Sumner Way. So all of that bundled up together, and why we have the buyer here today is really the opportunity as a county and an airport commission to bring forward a purchase agreement that has taken quite a bit of work to get this to this point in time. And I do want to briefly reflect on some of that work, more of administrative processes that all of you have been a part of that journey. And I'm thinking of the release of surplus property, which partially occurred. Some of it got released in 2020, and then the balance of that property in 2024, as well as equally important is getting support from the FAA through the formal land release process, which occurred in February of this year. So you bundle all that up, we have this purchase agreement or contract in front of you. Again, I welcome all your questions to either myself or to those that are here today, and I turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. I'll give the first question to Commissioner Hillenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. Well, again, it's a great day, and I want to thank you for all the work that you've put into this. Also the realtors and the buyer, and our legal team. And I just want to say that this was supported by the Airport Commission 100%, and looking forward to move forward.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Johnson, I haven't had a chance to look at this closely, so maybe a phone call before next week if I have any incidentals. I was going to ask the purchaser, if appropriate, can you give us any idea of what you envision for this property? It's a magnificent structure, great location, but I hope you're not going to tear it down and turn it into a, well, I won't go there, but anything that you could share would be appreciated.
Sure, yes. Thank you all for your time. Wes Grammer with Sky Partners. I'll bring up a building that we bought in St. Joseph, Missouri last year. We bought a 360,000 square foot office building. It was at the time owned by American Family Life Insurance. It was built in 1982. And it's very similar in size and scale. It's a different type of property. It's actually multiple buildings, but similar in scale. And so what we'll do from this point, if things go forward, we will begin to understand the building. And, you know, it's a huge building, and there are so many things in it that we need to understand, technology, systems, and exactly what's there. I would say the most likely use for the building moving forward would be office. It is an office building. At the same time, the building's been on the market for quite some time. And so, you know, there hasn't been anyone that's been willing to take the space. And so we need to figure out why that is, and we need to figure out what we need to do to reposition the property. And remaining as an office building will definitely be the easiest path forward. I do think we will look at other options, just because we need to. But we don't have a tenant today, and but I feel really positive about it in our experience, which was just a year ago in a very similar situation. You know, we have the team ready to really dive in and understand how best to market the property.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Grammer, for being here today. I feel almost like we're handing over our baby in some ways because we've been holding steady on this building for so long, and it is a magnificent building. I do think it's very unique with a huge auditorium, cafeteria, and just all kinds of interesting aspects to that building. The question I had was, and I wasn't sure if this was addressed in the briefing sheet, but have you done due diligence on the building? Or is that going to come next? But or you're aware of the potential issues with it. You said it has been sitting there for a while, and I just want to make sure there's no other barriers to this contract going forward.
Yeah, so I first met Brian probably 18 to 24 months ago. It's the first time I saw the building to actually walk it. Walked it multiple times, and we definitely have ideas and a plan for what we need to do for all the diligence. But yeah, there's a lot of work that has to take place. So I know that in some eyes it might seem like 4 to 6 months to understand the building is a lot, but it's not. We will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and with all kinds of consultants, brokers, managers, technology, people who understand the entire building, security. So yeah, we have a lot of work to do, so.
Well, I appreciate that. Just want to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, which,
Yeah.
before we move ahead.
Yeah.
But thank you. And I was telling someone earlier, it won't be that long before Gardner that will be a developing or developed area, and it'll be exciting to see how this building is part of what happens in that part of our county. So thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fast.
Yes, I've always thought it would be a really interesting, active senior living. I mean, because you have that beautiful area, in the auditorium. But I know that would take a lot to, restructure the building. But it's just such a, it always seemed like such a great, senior living center. Have you ever refitted office buildings into multifamily or not? That's usually you go one path or the other.
No, we studied that on our property in St. Joseph that I mentioned. For that particular building, you needed to actually cut an atrium in the middle of the building. And you would have a similar issue with this building where that would be the only way you'd be able to create with the depth of the building. You would need to, for the unit sizes, you would have to cut an atrium in it. We've explored it, could potentially work, but the cost involved with the structural issues that you might find in what we don't know, like that's just another example. A structural engineer would be required to get through the entire building to understand how you might do something like that.
Commissioner Brewer.
Yes, so my questions are mainly for Mr. Johnson, but I will say, 1, congratulations. 2, I think the position of the building and its proximity to Gardner, its proximity across from the new Century Field House Activity Center, I'm excited for what the future holds, and it sounds like the intent is, in addition to the purchase, is future investment in making sure that that fits nicely into the ecosystem around there. So I'm excited to see what you do, and I'll leave what you do up to you as the professional. So I appreciate that. I do have a couple technical questions for you, Mr. Johnson. Can you explain to us a little bit of the process when you do determine that there's property with, the process with the FAA, when you do determine that there's property that you have done your due diligence to best lease up, but you feel the most appropriate next step is to remove that from the rolls? What does that look like? And I have to believe some of that has to be dependent on where that parcel is in the full property map of the airport.
Yeah, I think the key here is highest and best use. And I think was really the goal when the airport assumed the building in 2020. Aaron, under his leadership, and many of you started contemplating, again, highest and best use. What is the maximum value of that building to the airport and to the county? And at that time, the position was to move it forward, intending to lease it or look at as many options as possible. There is a point in time then we collectively recognize, and working with the FAA, we can, again, better determine that because of our obligation, financial obligation, and maintaining that building, and I think that's really important here as well, we have done an exceptional job maintaining that building over the last 5 years. And I think that gives Wes and his team and others a lot of confidence in being able to get the finish line. But backing up a little bit, so we look at, for us, we don't have that capability or expertise. We're not professional real estate developers or representatives of that industry. So it's, again, a collective effort to decide, like, okay, we're going to release that building. And basically, the key here again, under all the way the property was titled over through the Surplus Property Act, DOD, it becomes a property or asset under the FAA, under our obligations, and then we walk through that process with them, submitting a variety of documents. Again, with a clear definition, one of the intended value, what we intend to use with the proceeds from the building, et cetera. So it's a really defined process. And again, I got to say for all of us here, again, thank you for that support along the way and the effort back in 2020 to take it on as it was conceived at that time.
And when you say it's a defined process, it's really defined by the FAA, what steps you have to do the determination and then do the process for the release from rules.
Correct.
Okay. And then now that it is released from rules and it can be sold, technically is that property that these facilities sit on, is that considered now property in the unincorporated portion of the county? Is that property that could be, if the buyer and say the city of Gardner want to see it as part of the city of Gardner, is that open for potential annexation? I mean, just the technical side of what's the status of the land that it sits on now and where it's considered as far as unincorporated or?
Yeah, that's a big question. It's a good question. I'll likely have Cindy come up here for a minute just to talk about, what's associated or tied to the deed once it's transferred over. But essentially, simply, that becomes an island still in an unincorporated Johnson County. It's just not an airport or county asset. It's privately owned. And then the developer has full traction to follow all the current conditions and procedures as set forth in Johnson County, including all the planning processes, approval processes, et cetera. But if you wouldn't mind speaking a little bit to the technical deed piece, if
Certainly. Cynthia Dunham, County Legal Department. As Brian said, it will remain an unincorporated Johnson County, no longer part of New Century Air Center, so it will still come, any rezoning or development plan applications would still come through our planning department and come to you in the future. There is, as part of that land release process from the FAA, there is a number of deed restrictions that will run with the land that you might imagine to protect because it's so close to the airfield. So things like height restrictions remain in place, that actions can't be taken that would interfere with the airfield activities or instrument activities, those kinds of things. Those will continue to run with the land regardless of who owns it for the forever, conceivably. So.
That's very helpful, because what I'm hearing is it still falls into that footprint of the land use map and what's permissible and what's not. And then I hear that any development, any changes to that property as a determination is made on what may change, that instead of running through Airport Commission, that would run through probably the West Zone Consolidated Zoning Board and work its way up to the BOCC?
That's correct. And of course, as two possibilities, within, of course, the next door neighbor, the Airport Commission can still, of course, will be commenting and telling you if there's an aircraft hazard or aviation hazard or concern. And then if it, for any reason, were ever to become, let's say, part of this, I think you alluded to this, to the city, if it were to become part of the city, then there is also the 1 mile review process, which you're all very familiar with as you see those come with any property within 1 mile of the airport.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
All right, I'm not seeing further questions at this time. Subject to intermittent questions from board members, can we put this on consent? Okay, we'll see it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Thank you very much to the team. Okay, I tried. All right, well, that's all the items we have on the agenda review for today. We will adjourn this agenda review. Everybody stick around for 1 second. We're done.
Can we do a working lunch with, no?